Hello, English learners. Welcome back to another great podcast here at English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, as always.
Food.
Food. We're going to be at a restaurant.
And, one of the most difficult or embarrassing things to deal with at a restaurant is what to say when you don't like the food or when it's bad quality food.
Right. So maybe we have to complain about the food or maybe even the service, right?
That's right. And in this lesson, we're going to be learning some really wonderful words and phrases that you can use when you need to complain about the food or the service in a restaurant.
Okay, so before we listen to what happens in this restaurant with this food, let's take a look very quickly at vocabulary preview.
Vocabulary preview.
Okay, we're only going to do one word today, and this you'll hear in the dialogue. An establishment.
Establishment.
This kind of establishment.
Okay, so when I say an establishment, that's a noun. What is an establishment?
It's basically a fancy word for a business or a restaurant in this case.
In this case, it's a restaurant.
Yep.
But in general, you can say it's a business. So you have a very fine establishment.
That's right. So an establishment, a type of business, a place of business, really.
Very good. All right, so now it's time for us to listen to our dialogue. We're going to find out what's going on here. Apparently, there is a very angry customer, and we're going to find out why.
Excuse me, waiter.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes, and no one has offered me a glass of water, brought any bread to the table, and our appetizers haven't been served yet. In this kind of establishment, I'd expect much better service.
I'm sorry, sir. I'll check on your order right away.
Relax, honey. The place is busy tonight, and I've heard the food is amazing. Anyway.
Here you are, sir. The foie gras for the lady and a mushroom soup for you.
Waiter! I ordered a cream of mushroom soup with asparagus. The soup is obviously too runny, and it's over-seasoned. It's completely inedible.
Okay, I do apologize for that. Can I bring you another soup, or would you like to order something else?
Take this foie gras back as well. It's rubbery and completely overcooked. And look at the portion size. How can you charge $25 for a sliver of duck liver?
Right away, sir.
Honey, come on. The foie gras was fine. Why are you making such a big deal? Are you trying to get our meal comped again?
What do you mean? We are paying for this, and I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks. I expect value for money.
Here you are, sir. I hope it is all right now. The chef has prepared it especially for you.
Yes, fine.
Honey, are you all right?
Well, I guess that's one lesson, hey? If you're in a restaurant, don't be too rude to the waiter. You never know what's going to happen.
The waiter and the cook, right?
Yeah, you don't want to offend that kitchen staff.
All right, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but now I think we had some really interesting vocabulary of how to describe food that is not well prepared, and we can take a look at that now in Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
All right, so the guy in this dialogue, he ordered a mushroom soup, and he complained that the mushroom soup was too runny.
Okay, the soup is too runny.
Runny.
So he wanted a cream of mushroom, so it should be a little bit thicker.
Yep.
But in this case, it was runny.
So when something is runny, it's too liquid.
Too liquid. And I think we can relate it to a runny nose, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so when liquid is coming out of your nose, a runny nose, in this case, the soup is runny.
All right. And another thing that he was complaining about, the food was over-seasoned.
Over-seasoned.
The food is over-seasoned.
Okay, so if the food is over-seasoned,
it's too salty.
So it's another way of saying it's too salty.
Yeah, it's kind of a fancy a cooking term.
Now, can I say if there's too much pepper in the food, can I say it's over-seasoned?
Well, technically, no. When a cook says something is over-seasoned, he's talking salt only.
Only salt, okay. So the cream of mushroom is very runny, it's over-seasoned, and he said it's completely inedible.
Inedible.
It's inedible.
Inedible.
Now, this word edible,
You can eat it.
you can eat it. So we add this prefix inedible.
You cannot eat it.
This is not possible.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that physically you can't eat it. It just means it's pretty disgusting.
Okay, this food is inedible. And then he started to complain about the other dish, and he said that it's rubbery.
Rubbery.
The foie gras was rubbery.
All right. So I think we noticed the word rubber. So obviously, if a food is rubbery, it tastes, or it's too chewy. It's like chewing on the bottom of your shoe, right?
Okay, so it's too hard to chew or to swallow.
Exactly.
All right. Apparently, the food was rubbery because it's completely overcooked.
Overcooked.
All right, we have overcooked.
So when something is overcooked, I mean, it's easy to understand that it's cooked too much.
But it doesn't mean that it's burnt, right?
No, so maybe you've ordered your steak to be rare, but it comes to you well done. So it's not burnt, but it's cooked too much.
So also, I guess we can say like chicken. Sometimes if you overcook chicken, it comes out too dry.
Yep.
All right, so to overcook something.
And finally, he was complaining about the size of the dish, and he said, this is a sliver of duck liver.
Okay, a sliver.
A sliver.
All right. Now, this word sliver is like a slice, right?
A very small, tiny little slice.
Okay, so we can say, okay, I just want a sliver of bacon for breakfast.
All right, why don't we hear a few more examples of how we can use sliver?
Example 1.
No, John's on a diet. He'll just have a sliver of cake and no ice cream.
Example 2.
I'm really full, but it looks so delicious. Can you just cut me a sliver?
Example 3.
You call this sliver of beef on my plate a meal? There's almost nothing here.
And those are all the words we had for language takeaway. Now you have... So we've given you different adjectives of describing food that is not well prepared. So now let's move on to some other phrases that the customer used to complain in Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, so before we get to the customer complaining language, I want to look at a phrase that the waiter used to apologize. He said, I do apologize.
I do apologize.
I do apologize.
Now, why is this phrase so interesting?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to understand the meaning, but I want to look at why he added this verb do. Well, he added the verb do to this phrase to make it seem a little bit stronger, to give a little more power to his apology.
Right, so if you have an affirmative phrase like, I apologize.
Yep.
It's good.
Yeah.
But if you want to give it a little bit more emphasis, you can say, I do apologize.
Why don't we give an example? So I might say this. Marco, I didn't know we had a party tonight.
And I might say, what? I did tell you about it last week.
Right, so you're just giving a little bit more power to the statement that you told me.
So this do, did, does becomes an auxiliary to make it more powerful, to give it more emphasis.
Yeah, exactly. So a neat little phrase, something you can use if you want to make your apologies sound maybe a little bit stronger.
All right. Now, moving on to the next phrase. He was complaining about the food and it was terrible, and he said, I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks.
Okay, let's break this one down into two sections. We'll start with shelling out.
All right, so to shell out.
So when you shell out, you pay for something.
All right, but this gives you the sensation that you don't really want to pay.
You're a bit unhappy about it.
Right, so you want to shell out your money.
Why don't we listen to some examples to show us how we can use this phrase to shell out?
Example 1.
Great. It's my girlfriend's birthday this month, so I'm going to have to shell out for a present.
Example 2.
I really want those shoes, but I can't really afford to shell out $400.
Example 3.
I can't believe it. Ella shelled out the $800 for the tickets. I thought I would have to pay.
All right, so now that we understand shell out, let's move on to the second part of that sentence. My hard-earned bucks.
hard-earned bucks.
My hard-earned bucks.
Okay, so bucks are dollars, right?
Dollars. Only dollars, right?
Yeah, not pounds, not euros. But his hard-earned bucks is money he had to work really hard for.
So I can also say my hard-earned money, right? Or my hard-earned cash.
Exactly.
Very good. So you worked hard to get it.
All right, so three great phrases that can be used when you're complaining in a restaurant. And why don't we hear them one last time in context by listening to the dialogue?
Excuse me, waiter.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes and no one has offered me a glass of water, brought any bread to the table, and our appetizers haven't been served yet. You know, in this kind of establishment, I'd expect much better service.
I'm sorry, sir. I'll check on your order right away.
Relax, honey. The place is busy tonight, and I've heard the food is amazing. Anyway,
Here you are, sir. The foie gras for the lady and a mushroom soup for you.
Waiter! I ordered a cream of mushroom soup with asparagus. The soup is obviously too runny and it's over-seasoned. It's completely inedible.
Okay, I do apologize for that. Can I bring you another soup, or would you like to order something else?
Take this foie gras back as well. It's rubbery and completely overcooked. And look at the portion size. How can you charge $25 for a sliver of duck liver?
Right away, sir.
honey, come on. The foie gras was fine. Why are you making such a big deal? Are you trying to get our meal comped again?
What do you mean? We are paying for this, and I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks. I expect value for money.
Here you are, sir. I hope it is all right now. The chef has prepared it especially for you.
Yes, fine.
Honey, are you all right?
So complaining at a restaurant and actually sending food back is not uncommon in the US.
Yeah, of course. If the food's bad, of course you're going to send it back.
But maybe in other cultures, I think people would be a little bit more reluctant to do something like this.
Yeah. But hey, you know what's an interesting thing about the way Americans eat in restaurants is sometimes at the end of the meal, if they haven't finished everything, they might ask for a doggy bag.
A doggy bag, yeah.
Yeah. So what is that, a doggy bag?
Well, usually if you order a big meal or, half your steak is left over on your plate, you would ask for a doggy bag and they would bring you a little box or a bag and you would take it to supposedly give it to your dog.
Right. So it's sort of like you tell the waiter, the steak was so good, I couldn't finish it. Can I take some home to my dog?
Right. So you would just ask, waiter, can I have a doggy bag?
Right. But it's sort of like code for, I'm going to eat this tomorrow for lunch.
Exactly. Because people wouldn't really give it to their dogs.
Yeah.
I mean,
that steak wrapped up in a fancy sort of foil swan is going to be pretty delicious the next day.
right. Yeah, it's actually very common in the US, but in other countries, people will leave
Yeah.
entire plates of food on the
It'd
table.
be totally impolite to ask the waiter to pack up the food for you.
Exactly.
Yep.
So a little bit of cultural differences, but we want to know what you think and how things are done maybe in your country with complaining or sending food back or even this whole doggy bag situation.
That's right. Why don't you visit our website, englishpod.com, and tell us about it.
All right. We'll be there to answer any questions or comments, but we got to go now. So until then,
Goodbye.
bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word. A bad second taste.
A bad aftertaste.
A strong, unpleasant taste that is opposite of sweet.
Bitter.
A strong, unpleasant smell.
Rank.
A rotten taste or smell.
Rancid.
Not appealing, not attractive or tasty.
Unappealing.
Little dish people have before meal.
Appetizer.
Place of business like a restaurant or hotel.
Establishment.
Work done by someone to serve customers.
Service.
The list containing your choices of dishes.
Order.
A food made from the livers of geese.
Foie gras.
More liquid than expected.
Runny.
Too salty.
Over-seasoned.
Cannot be eaten.
Inedible.
Difficult to chew.
Rubbery.
Be cooked over time.
Overcooked.
The amount of food that is served to a person.
Portion size.
A small, thin piece.
Sliver.
Get very upset about something small.
Make a big deal.
Be given to customers for free.
Comp.
To spend money.
Shell out.
Money you work hard for.
Hard earned.
Let's try that faster. Work done by someone to serve customers.
Service.
Place of business like a restaurant or hotel.
Establishment.
More liquid than expected.
Runny.
The amount of food that is served to a person.
Portion size.
A strong, unpleasant smell.
Rank.
Difficult to chew.
Rubbery.
Too salty.
Over-seasoned.
Not appealing, not attractive or tasty.
Unappealing.
Be given to customers for free.
Comp.
Get very upset about something small.
Make a big deal.
A strong, unpleasant taste that is opposite of sweet.
Bitter.
A bad second taste.
A bad aftertaste.
A food made from the livers of geese.
Foie gras.
The list containing your choices of dishes.
Order.
Be cooked over time.
Overcooked.
Cannot be eaten.
Inedible.
To spend money.
Shell out.
Money you work hard for.
Hard earned.
A rotten taste or smell.
Rancid.
A small, thin piece.
Sliver.
Little dish people have before meal.
Appetizer.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Inedible.
This fish tastes terrible. It's completely inedible.
Inedible.
If you leave meat out of the refrigerator for too long, it will be inedible.
Inedible.
Are you sure you can eat that? Aren't the flower decorations on cakes inedible?
Rubbery.
This steak is so rubbery I can barely chew it.
Rubbery.
If the meat is so rubbery, why don't you send it back?
Rubbery.
The foie gras is so rubbery, I bet it would bounce on the floor if I dropped it.
Sliver.
No, John's on a diet. He'll just have a sliver of cake and no ice cream.
Sliver.
I'm really full, but it looks so delicious. Can you just cut me a sliver?
Sliver.
You call this sliver of beef on my plate a meal? There's almost nothing here.
Hard-earned.
Doesn't it feel good when you use your hard-earned bucks to buy something you've always wanted?
Hard-earned.
I refuse to spend my hard-earned bucks on someone who won't appreciate it.
Hard-earned.
Richard is such a great guy. Every year he would donate his hard-earned bucks to a different charity. I can't believe I got a parking ticket yesterday. Now I'm going to have to shell out $75. It's me and my girlfriend's 5-year anniversary on Saturday, so I'm going to shell out for a nice dinner and a pair of nice earrings. Tommy loved to party. Last night, he shelled out $300 buying people drinks. Hello, English learners. Welcome back to another great podcast here at English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're going to be bringing you bad news.
That's right. Actually, what we're really going to be bringing you is language to talk about bad news.
Exactly. So maybe you have to give bad news to your boss, to your parents, I don't know, somebody, and we're going to be teaching you how to do this in English.
Well, obviously, it's always difficult to tell somebody bad news, but in your second language, it's even harder. So we're going to try and help you today with some great phrases and vocabulary items.
We're not going to preview anything today. Let's go directly to our dialogue where we will be in a company and one of the employees is going to be giving bad news to his boss. So let's listen.
Now that we've been over the gory details of our disastrous first quarter, Ed, give us some good news. How are things looking for us in terms of sales this month?
Well, would you like the bad news first or the really bad news?
What? Ed, don't tell me you only have bad news.
Well, sir, our sales have dropped. No, plunged. 50% in the past month alone. We are currently overstocked and overstaffed, and our profits are falling fast. The market is in recession, and we have no way of moving our inventory or getting rid of our staff. If we consider redundancies, it would cost us a fortune because of the new regulations governing compensation packages. It's a real mess.
For crying out loud, how fast are we losing money?
How can I put this? Let's just say that at this pace, we will be filing for Chapter 11 in less than 3 months.
What? Jeez, how could this have happened? So what's the bad news?
Oh, that's the really bad news. Our suppliers suffered QC problems, and, well, half of our production is faulty. We're going to have to recall all items sold in the last quarter, and the worst part, we're going to have to shoulder this cost.
Are you joking? Get the supplier on the line now. They have to assume the cost of this mess.
We tried that, sir. The factory has gone under, and the owner apparently has fled the country.
Oh, we're doomed.
There's some really good news, though.
Really? What?
I got offered a new job.
Right. It sounds like a pretty tough time for this company, doesn't it?
But good news for the employee, he won't be jobless.
Well, I guess he knows when to get out. But why don't we take a look at some of the language now in Language Takeaway?
Language takeaway.
So in Language Takeaway today, we have 5 vocabulary items, and well, let's start with the first one.
All right, so the boss, he's talking about the gory details of our disastrous first quarter. So let's look at the phrase gory details.
All right, so gory details.
Gory details.
This sounds kind of strange, gory details. It seems very scary.
Well, the word gory comes from gore, like blood and guts, right?
Exactly, that's why it sounds a little bit scary to me.
Yep. So gory details mean all the little details of a negative or shocking or bad situation.
Okay, so the gory details of the meeting, so all the nasty and negative stuff.
Or the gory detail, or you could say the newspaper reported all the gory details of the murder.
Okay, very good. So gory details. So the employee was talking about how bad the company was doing, and he mentioned this word redundancies.
Redundancies.
They are considering redundancies.
Okay, so redundancies, again, it's based on the word to be redundant.
All right, and that means?
To not be needed anymore.
Okay, so redundancies are basically firing people.
It's, well, laying people off. People that you don't need anymore. They are redundancies.
All right, so this is actually a British term, redundancies, to become redundant, because in American English, you would just say layoffs.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
All right, so moving on. They were talking about redundancies and maybe they should or shouldn't lay some people off, but one of the problems were the regulations governing compensation packages.
Okay, so regulations governing compensation packages.
Regulations governing something.
So we have a noun governing noun. Well, what does that mean?
All right, so I think it would help us to understand this a little better if we listen to some examples of this pattern, noun governing noun.
Example 1.
I don't agree with the regulations governing income taxes. People shouldn't have to give away their hard-earned money.
Example 2.
We need to protect the environment. Therefore, there will be new policies governing corporate levels of pollution starting next month.
Example 3.
The lack of regulations governing city transportation has led to many traffic accidents. Okay, great examples. And, well, before we move on, this compensation packages, I guess it's all the things that the company gives you when they lay you off, right?
Right, maybe a certain portion of your retirement benefits
And
or
like a month's pay, etc.
Yep.
Okay, compensation packages. All right, so moving on to our next item on language takeaway, we have to shoulder the cost.
To shoulder the cost.
All right, so if I shoulder something,
you have to carry it.
I carry it.
Yeah.
Ah, that's a good one. So basically it's the same as the shoulder, your body.
Yep.
So you carry this cost or you carry this responsibility.
Yep. So you might also hear shoulder the burden.
To shoulder the burden.
Yeah. So it just means to carry the responsibility.
Okay, to share it.
Yep.
All right, interesting. And we have one more word on language takeaway. And the factory has gone under.
To go under.
All right, to go under.
When something goes under, a company goes under, it goes bankrupt.
It goes bankrupt. So it's not working anymore.
That's right.
All right, so to go under. Great vocabulary items here on Language Takeaway today. It's time for us to move on to the next segment of our show where we're going to look at some phrases. So let's start now with Fluency Builder.
Fluency builder.
All right, so we've got some phrases that you can use when somebody's going to tell you some bad news, but also some phrases you can use to deliver bad news.
All right, so let's start with our first phrase.
So the boss is getting ready to prepare for this bad news, and he says, "Lay it on me."
He's like, okay, lay it on me.
Lay it on me.
So if I say this, lay it on me, I'm just saying, tell me.
Exactly.
So give me the bad news. All right, so lay it on me. Very informal, though.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of informal. But our next phrase, the boss is hearing about all this bad news, and he says, "For crying out loud."
For crying out loud.
For crying out loud.
All right, so this is a very common phrase of frustration.
Yep.
Right? So why don't we listen to some examples to kind of understand how we use this phrase?
Example 1.
For crying out loud, when I tell you to have the report done by Wednesday, that means I expect it to be on my desk by the end of the day.
Example 2.
We've got to figure out a new marketing strategy for crying out loud.
Example 3.
For crying out loud, you just got your driving license and you already got in an accident?
So it kind of reminds me of oh my god.
So you're frustrated. You're just saying this phrase as oh my god or something like this.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is so annoying.
Exactly. For crying out loud.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to our third phrase. How can I put this?
How can I put this?
So the boss asked him a direct question and he said, well, how can I put this?
So we use this phrase when we want to say something maybe a little bit more indirectly.
Right, so you're looking for words of how you can make it softer or more polite. Maybe the truth or what you're about to say is a little bit strong, so you want to soften it up a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so you say, how can I put this? But then you have to complement it with, let's just say that.
Let's just say that.
Let's just say that.
So how do we use this phrase?
So, for example, somebody asks me, well, what do you mean? Why can't you come on vacation with us? Mm-hmm. And I would say, how can I put this? Let's just say that in 9 months you will hear the pitter-patter of little feet.
Okay, so your girlfriend's pregnant.
Exactly. So you're not saying my girlfriend is pregnant.
You're giving like a metaphor.
A metaphor of what's going on, but you don't want to say it directly.
Yeah.
Right?
Another example, I might say, let's just say that Michael isn't doing a great job.
All right. So maybe there are very strong reasons or he's doing very, very poorly.
Right. But I'm just sort of not saying it exactly directly that he's doing bad.
Okay. Very good. So it's a phrase that you can actually use a lot and to be a little bit more polite or a little bit more indirect when you're giving somebody some bad news.
Exactly. Two nice sort of complimenting phrases for delivering bad news. And why don't we hear them one more time in the dialogue?
Now that we've been over the gory details of our disastrous first quarter, Ed, give us some good news. How are things looking for us in terms of sales this month?
Well, would you like the bad news first or the really bad news?
What? Ed, don't tell me you only have bad news.
Well, sir, our sales have dropped. No, plunged. 50% in the past month alone. We are currently overstocked and overstaffed, and our profits are falling fast. The market is in recession, and we have no way of moving our inventory or getting rid of our staff. If we consider redundancies, it would cost us a fortune because of the new regulations governing compensation packages. It's a real mess.
For crying out loud, how fast are we losing money?
How can I put this? Let's just say that at this pace, we will be filing for Chapter 11 in less than 3 months.
What? Jeez, how could this have happened? So what's the bad news?
Oh, that's the really bad news. Our suppliers suffered QC problems, and, well, half of our production is faulty. We're going to have to recall all items sold in the last quarter, and the worst part, we're going to have to shoulder this cost.
Are you joking? Get the supplier on the line now. They have to assume the cost of this mess.
We tried that, sir. The factory has gone under, and the owner apparently has fled the country.
Oh, we're doomed.
There is some really good news, though.
Really? What?
I got offered a new job.
All right, great. So this topic of filing for Chapter 11 is actually very recent, very common now because recently one of the biggest companies filed for Chapter 11 in the U.S.
Yeah, that's right. But I often get confused by the phrase to file for Chapter 11 versus to file for Chapter 13.
All right, so in the United States, the bankruptcy law has different chapters or different sections, right?
Yep.
And Chapter 11 is basically for companies that run out of money, that go bankrupt, so they have to declare themselves in bankruptcy.
Yep.
And so they file for Chapter 11.
But what about Chapter 13?
Chapter 13 is for people.
Ah, okay.
So people who have large debts, maybe with the car company or the telephone company, and they can't pay, they file for Chapter 13. They say, hey, I don't have money, I can't pay.
Right, and so I guess here it's kind of a metaphor again. You know, it's this phrase to file for Chapter 11 or Chapter 13, meaning bankruptcy.
Right.
And people will say personally that they're filing for Chapter 11.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So this is an interesting situation because if you file for bankruptcy in some countries, you can go to jail.
I read recently about this happening in Dubai, actually.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
there is prison for debts. In the U.S., you don't go to prison for debts.
But what about in your countries, listeners? What happens when you go into debt in your country?
Or what happens when a company goes into bankruptcy. Let us know. Come to our website, englishpod.com. Leave your questions and comments. And of course, Erica and I are always there to help you out.
Thanks for downloading, you guys. And until next time, goodbye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
The minimum return below which an enterprise becomes unprofitable.
Margin.
The entire amount of income before any deductions are made.
Revenue.
Having no money. Informal.
Broke.
The lowest possible level or absolute bottom.
Hit rock bottom.
Cause to rise rapidly and suddenly.
Skyrocket.
All the small details.
Gory details.
Tell me the bad news.
Lay it on me.
Drop down suddenly and quickly.
Plunge.
Very bad. Having bad results.
Disastrous.
Regarding. About.
In terms of.
Having too many things to sell.
To be overstocked.
Have too many employees.
Be overstaffed.
The amount of products you have to sell.
Inventory.
Remove or take away something that is annoying.
Get rid of.
Layoffs. Ending employment of staff for money reasons.
Redundancies.
Be responsible for the cost.
Shoulder the cost.
Rule.
Govern.
Used to express anger or annoyance.
For crying out loud.
Bankruptcy. Owing more money than you can pay.
Chapter 11.
The process of controlling the quality of production. Quality control.
Quality control.
Let's try that faster.
Regarding. About.
In terms of.
Tell me the bad news.
Lay it on me.
Having too many things to sell.
To be overstocked.
Used to express anger or annoyance.
For crying out loud.
Rule.
Govern.
The amount of products you have to sell.
Inventory.
The process of controlling the quality of production. Quality control.
Quality control.
The entire amount of income before any deductions are made.
Revenue.
All the small details.
Gory details.
Layoffs. Ending employment of staff for money reasons.
Redundancies.
Remove or take away something that is annoying.
Get rid of.
Cause to rise rapidly and suddenly.
Skyrocket.
Very bad. Having bad results.
Disastrous.
Having no money. Informal.
Broke.
Be responsible for the cost.
Shoulder the cost.
The lowest possible level or absolute bottom.
Hit rock bottom.
Bankruptcy. Owing more money than you can pay.
Chapter 11.
Have too many employees.
Be overstaffed.
The minimum return below which an enterprise becomes unprofitable.
Margin.
Drop down suddenly and quickly.
Plunge.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Gory details. Without going too much into the gory details of the current economy, you should know that we expect business to slow down in the next few months. Gory details. Spare me the gory details. How are we going to survive this financial crisis? Gory details. Tell me all about your pregnancy, sparing me the gory details, of course. We need to protect the environment. Therefore, there will be new policies governing corporate levels of pollution starting next month. I don't agree with the regulations governing income taxes. People shouldn't have to give away their hard-earned money. The lack of regulations governing city transportation has led to many traffic accidents. Our insurance for a financial crisis expired 6 months ago, so we are going to have to shoulder the cost of this loss. We are going to have to shoulder the majority of the costs for this project. Many of our investors pulled out. You are going to have to shoulder the costs if you break that vase. For crying out loud. For crying out loud. When I tell you to have the report done by Wednesday, that means I expect it to be on my desk by the end of the day. For crying out loud. We've got to figure out a new marketing strategy for crying out loud. For crying out loud. For crying out loud. You just got your driving license and you already got in an accident? Let's just say that the economy is so bad that if we still have our jobs in 2 months, we will be lucky. Let's just say that if we don't come up with an exciting marketing strategy soon, we might go bankrupt. She is so incredibly gorgeous. Let's just say that when she walks by, people turn their heads to watch her pass.